Good morning, everyone. Happy Friday. You all are having a good day today and had a good week. Just get nice and settled in first. We've got your coffee if you're nice and cozy. I decided to go cozy today. I've got my coffee and I've got water. I've got an assortment of drinks with me today. And while you get nice and comfy, I want you to just start to think about maybe some emotions that come up or just what you think about when you think of the word change. And I'll let you just digest that for a moment. And then we'll start to kind of dissect. So today we're talking about ways to accept change in your life and ways to accept both negative and positive change. Both can be incredibly overwhelming, and it's important to always acknowledge both sides of it. In the same way we've done the last couple of weeks where we talk about, the negative and positive sides of success, negative and positives of judgment. It's important to dissect it both ways so that when you are confronted with something, you can acknowledge and approach appropriately or with a little bit more knowledge than what you would have impulsively done before. At least that's how my brain works. So I just want you to think about what comes to mind when you think of the word change. Now, I'm going to go over a few different things. The first one is going to be when you think of change, there's a lot of unknowns, right? In both scenarios. Change can cover such a, it's a big truck. Change can cover such a broad spectrum of situations, right? You can have change financially. You can have change in relationships. You can have change in your physical and mental appearance, change in your education, change in your living situation. You can have so much change. And oftentimes it's not one that you volunteered for. Sometimes I call it like the forced change, you had no opportunity to speak up and say how you felt about the situation, and you were forced to make a change. Now, one thing, this is probably one of the trickier things that I'll talk about, is embracing the I don't know. Whether it be a positive or a negative change, being able to embrace the fact that you don't know what's coming next. In a way to think of this in a non-frustrating way is like embracing the spontaneity, allow life to be a little bit spontaneous as long as it's in a safe and comfortable way. Embracing the I don't know. So change can bring you into an entirely different world where you can't guess. You might be confused. You might be lost. But once you start to embrace the I don't know, you open new doors to new opportunities. And the I don't know is not settling. So there's a lot of times where we are so in a rush for a change. I know that I am 1,000% guilty of being in a rush for change pretty much all the time. But once you're in that constant rush for changing or upgrading or any of those types of things, you end up settling for something that isn't you. So you're cutting yourself short. So embrace the I don't know. Embrace the fact that you now have this opportunity to explore and start over. And, everybody loves the idea of just packing up and starting fresh. Embrace that I don't know. Another thing, I'm going to use this word a lot because it's appropriate and it's a comforting word, embrace, right? It makes it seem easier than it is, and I understand that, but it's also important to realize that once you start to implement ways to embrace your life, a lot of the fears go away. And with change, it brings up two emotions. two dominant emotions, fear and excitement. Two very much adrenaline driven emotions, right? So say you lost your job, okay? A way you can get both of those emotions. One, there's a lot of fear. Fear because you just lost your job. Maybe you lost your insurance with that job. Your pay was really well, all these things, right? And that'll slowly turn into excitement of, well, now I get to go do what I love, do what I wanted to do. And then it turns back into fear when you get another job of, am I qualified? I don't know these people. I've never been here before. The pay is different. Da, da, da. And it fluctuates back and forth until you find that steady plateau of comfort. So you just have to embrace that. You have to acknowledge it, not live in it. always, always acknowledge and don't live in it. But you have to find that happy medium between the two of dissecting the fears and the excitement. So this goes into the second one of embracing how you feel. I talked about this last week too, of kind of confronting the ego, right? Where we say, you know, yes, thank you, ego. I hear you. I acknowledge you, but I'm going to do this. Doing that in the same way with your emotions. So this doesn't necessarily have to tie into your ego. Sometimes it can with change. Maybe you think you're better than your situation and your ego's telling you, yeah, girl, do it. That's not the ego being mean to you or, you know, starting a conflict, but it's a conversation you have to have with yourself. So embracing the way you feel is communicating with yourself and with people that you feel comfortable with. It's allowing you to speak openly about your feelings with your friends, your family, your loved ones, your partner, and actually feel your emotions. So I will take a little detour with this one because one thing that we tend to do when we are confronted with change is we hide our emotions away. We put up a front. Naturally, it's our survival tactic, right? No one's going to know we're weak, but inside we are weak and we're not acknowledging that we're weak in a lot of situations. And I'll just speak from my own personal experience. Okay. So there have been so many times where change has happened and I've just been like, okay, on to the next thing, on to the next thing, on to the next thing, on to the next thing. And I was never a part of the change that was happening. I never confronted my feelings with it. I never accepted that change. I just went, okay, and moved on. That's not a healthy way to acknowledge things and acknowledge feelings. So I grew up in a military household. My dad's a Marine. And so every 4 years, like clockwork, we were moving to a different location over and over and over again. So I have a harder time staying stationary than I do hopping around and dealing with the moving change or the changing of scenery and people. I don't have a tough time with that because that's been my whole life. And when I was confronted with the change of we're staying here, my thought was, well, I'll just join the military so I can keep moving around because I don't like staying in one place. I didn't acknowledge those fears of getting comfortable somewhere. Also, I constantly, so say I got out of the military, that was the big change for me because I was honorably discharged. And that was a big change that I never confronted fully. I had a lot of traumas after that I never confronted fully. So what am I doing? I'm just stacking these things on top of one another, burying them down, and then I run out of room, right? Eventually you run out of room. And instead of confronting that change in each scenario, say like once a year something happened, I had to confront all of those emotions at the same time when I ran out of room. So it's so important to have those conversations with yourself. Talk to yourself about your trauma. Give yourself that space. And you can do this in a meditation and just giving yourself that couple minutes a day, you know, to sit down and just be with yourself. Or do it in your personal practice. Set your intention and work through it that way. But if you don't confront those difficult changes in your life, you're going to have to confront them all at the same time. And speaking from experience, that is tough. I have been dealing with that for, I am 29 now. I didn't confront any of these things until the beginning of last year. So it can be very traumatizing to go through. So I highly recommend that if you have things going on right now that have to do with change, confront them. If they're negative, confront them with yourself, accept them, have that conversation. If they're a good change, celebrate it. Celebrate those little things, because what happens is you still get that hunger to keep moving, keep moving, keep moving. Even in all these positive things, you're stacking them on top of each other inside without acknowledging all the beautiful hard work that you've done, and keeping that hunger to just keep wanting more and more and more and more. And then what do you do when you're at the top? You're like, well, what's next? Now I'm depressed and have anxiety because I've done nothing with my life. But no, you've done all these beautiful things that you never acknowledged. So in the positive and the negatives of change, acknowledge them. Talk about your feelings. If you don't have somebody to talk to, one thing that I love doing on my own, if I feel overwhelmed, I say it out loud. If I'm just alone in the house, I'll say my feelings out loud. I'll go take a shower just to get the words out of my body, and then have my own cleansing ritual of, okay, we're done. It works for me. Maybe that will work for you, but at least getting it out of your system, okay? Having that conversation with yourself of maybe what is good about this change? What new doors are gonna open with this change? What doors are gonna close with this change? And just be able to be honest with yourself. It's been very easy in this new social media life, right? To just lie to yourself. It's very fascinating to me, because obviously I am on social media. But it's fascinating to me to think of these people that have these picturesque pages, and then when they're not on their profile, they just hate their lives. You're not going to find that connection in life by lying. You have to embrace yourself, embrace your change, and have those conversations. Now, the last thing, which they all blend together, right? The last thing is to adapt. Now, adapting to change can be tricky, because oftentimes the changes that we are forced into aren't ones that we wanted, aren't ones that we had a say in. And we're sad. Plain and simple, we're sad. We didn't want this change to happen. But you have to be able to adapt. And that comes into everything in life. You know, something happens, you have to have a solution and go forward. But adapting is honoring the emotions at the same time. It's communicating how you feel. So say you were forced to move all the way across the country. You don't know anybody, it's a new job, you're all by yourself, you don't know where you are. Your instinct is going to be to either hide in your room until someone forces you out, say you make a work friend, or you're going to go and explore. Both of those scenarios, you're adapting, right? You're communicating with somebody who wants to pull you out and show you, have that guidance, be accepting of the guidance. And if you want to explore, that's you creating new opportunities to find new joy in your life. So things are hard. Like life is not easy. Life is hard. So when you have things like, say you get divorced and it caught you off guard completely, you can sit with that for a little while. That is a traumatic event. You can sit with that for a while. But then once you settle into your new place, you settle into your new area where you are, get into your new routine, you'll start to explore. Maybe you'll pick up hobbies that you dropped off years ago. Make new friends. You will always adapt. So this is my little pep talk about change. This is what I kind of go through in my head when I think about change. I don't always think a negative thing. There's always so many positives, and oftentimes the negatives that we are confronting, eventually they turn into positives. Before I got into my teaching and the life that I'm very blessed with now, I was having a really hard time. And going from a place that was not positive, not healthy, not supportive, to the exact opposite, you would think that that would be an easy change. But it was not. It was not an easy change going from bad to good. But you have to adapt. You have to communicate. You have to embrace the I'm starting from fresh. I don't know anything anymore. See how that makes you feel. If you can slowly start to adapt those little things into even just the smallest of situations. So you have a change in appearance. You don't know what's going to come from that. Communicate how you feel about it. Do you feel good? Do you feel bad? What are you going to do about it? Celebrate it. Have those conversations with yourself. I feel like each one of these discussions that we have is going to end with me just saying, talk to yourself. Be honest with yourself and how you are feeling. Because you can lie out loud and inside you feel one way, and then you're just torturing yourself with a change that you can just be so open about. So that's my talk today, guys. I hope you all have a beautiful day. I hope you all embrace your weekend, embrace any change that comes up, be a little spontaneous, and I will see you all next week. Bye.